Hello, my name's Warwick, and this is my channel. You see, I've set aside 12 months to figure out how to unlock a life of creative freedom. I guess through this exploration, I'm trying to work out not just how we create, but why it is we must. In this video, I will share 5 philosophical life lessons that have set me off on my creative journey. And I think these lessons might be useful to you too. Now, this is my first video, and I think it would be remiss of me not to labor on the point or sit on the fact that within the creative process, this moment in my own process is probably one of the most significant. Like, just starting is the most difficult thing to do. For years, I've admired people who have sort of found a unique way of living. They seem to have challenged the norm. They've thrown away the 9 to 5, and they seem to sort of do what they want on their own terms, living a life that seems authentic and fulfilling. And I've always felt that the dream, that different way of living, is sort of out of reach. This is for the few who have found a book deal, or who have made it as a musician, or who have created a YouTube channel to some sort of success. But all of these people have one thing in common. They all started. And that's what I think the beauty of starting is. Like, we sit on this side of our own perspective, and we don't have a chance at those opportunities if we're not even taking that first step. So the first takeaway for me here is that starting is how you get to where you want to go. For every beginning, there would have been a necessary end to something else. Beginnings and endings, they all come down to choices. And I think choices are rooted in identity. Let me explain this quickly. We become our identities based on what we do. If you want to identify as someone who is healthy, you need to wake up every day and choose to live healthy, choose what to eat, choose how you exercise. And at some point, you'll become, through an identity, a healthy person. But our identities are complex things to get a grip on. I mean, on the one hand, they are things that we have personal self-belief in. Like, we are these things regardless of where we are. But on the other hand, we are shaped by where we are. So this means that our identities are constantly shifting, either based on the choices we're making about our own identities, or the places that we find ourselves that are perhaps influencing these choices, or influencing directly the identities we choose. Okay, so quick side mission here. To make this point of identities, I need to tell you about myself. We have to go back to 2009. I had to make an unfair decision that most 17-year-olds have to make. It's like, what do you want to be with the rest of your life? And younger me liked both art and science, sort of left brain, right brain, logic and creativity. And the only degree in the physical university brochure that seemed to not feel like I was giving away parts of myself for another part, like giving away one identity in favor of another, was architecture. So after studying architecture, obviously young 17-year-old then becomes young 24-year-old, and my worldview significantly expanded. And then at that point, it felt like a life worth living was a life defined by making a positive impact in the world. So I chose not to be an architect, and then went down sort of a strategy consulting route where I worked for NGOs and eventually the UN. And then I found myself sort of where I am today, creatively unfulfilled. I think that young 17-year-old me was right. Like, I needed both that art and that science, or there was something lost along the way. If we look at that as a shifting personal perspective of identities, we went from I identify as both the art and science, that creative person and the strategic person, and then I went into you got to do good in the world, and now I've gone sort of full circle to say actually the thing that's valuable in the world is personal expression and this human thing. And And I think that's the point here, that your identity is a fluid thing, but it's not something that's hard-coded into you. You choose your identity, and then you choose how to behave to become that identity. And this is my second takeaway. Ends occur where identities shift. So let's dive into this new identity that I'm defining for myself. So I've got this idea that it is necessary for creative people to be creative, as if like it's a crisis of identity if you are creative but you're not creating. I find it a deeply rewarding experience when you wake up at the beginning of the day and by the end of the day you've created something that wasn't there. Seth Godin says, "We don't make art to win, we make it to live a richer and fuller life." Well, Brené Brown says that creativity is a way I share my soul with the world. And these things deeply resonate with me. And I think what's happened is that the side of this sort of the duality between the art versus the science, the creative versus the logic, I think that the logic has a tendency to win. Like the art is this intangible thing. Almost as if the question is like, what's more valuable in society, the artist or the doctor? Like there's a productivity to a logic that society really values, but there's not necessarily the same like utility or productivity to the creative act, to creatively express. And I think that that's undervaluing the human side of just like what it is to create and what it is to be. And that's my next lesson. In any conflict between logic and expression, logic has a tendency to win. So I've given myself 12 months to work towards this new identity that I've defined for myself. I'll be doing two things. The first is things that I think are creatively fulfilling. Like making this video, I think will be a creatively fulfilling act, even if no one watches it. The second thing that I'm going to try do is unlock some sort of income. Like if I'm to do this beyond these 12 months, I need evidence that this is a viable way of living. And that's going to take some money. And I have no idea how we're going to get there. So not knowing is very much a part of it. And trusting the journey is what these next 12 months are all about. You are going to be rubbish at the beginning when you start anything. Comparison is the thief of joy. And it's completely unfair to compare yourself as someone who's at the start of their journey to someone who is much further along down the road. Not only that, have they practiced the skill and built an ability and processes and systems to do what they're doing more effectively and efficiently, but they also have bigger budgets. They might have multiple people working on it. And what you see as a finished product might be the product of a team. So to counter this, my goal is to increase the amount of opportunities I have to embarrass myself, as opposed to this expectation of increasing the amount of opportunities I have to impress others. By increasing the amount of opportunities I have to embarrass myself, it implies that I've tried something and I've shared it, I've put it out there, and that I'll find that deeply embarrassing. And I suspect over time, I'll become either less embarrassed by what I'm putting out because it gets better, or because I'll just get used to putting myself out there and being sort of less worried about how other people might perceive that thing. And that's the fourth lesson. Increase the amount of opportunities you have to be embarrassed. So my opportunities to be embarrassed are to make one long video a week, which is this on YouTube. It's to make 3 short videos a week, which will go everywhere short videos go. And it's to produce a written newsletter. And the next bit is about expectation management. Like we can control the things within our control. We can control the outputs. I can decide, or I can know with certainty that I will create a video every week, but I don't have any control and can't with any certainty say who's going to watch that video. And that's an important thing, to start defining your outputs rather than your outcomes. Because your outputs, you're responsible for. You have creative control and just control in general over what these outputs are. The outcomes of that output is something that may land, it may not land. So focus on what is in your control and set your goals on what you can control rather than what you cannot control. So this is the 5th lesson. Set your goals based on your outputs, not your outcomes. And that's it. So let's recap. Lesson 1 is starting is how you get to where you want to go. Lesson 2 is ends occur where identities change. Lesson 3 is in the trade-offs between logic and expression, logic has a tendency to win. Lesson 4 is you need to increase your opportunities to embarrass yourself. And lesson 5 is set your goals around your efforts, not around the results. So hey, it's Warwick from the following day. So that's the end of the video, and it's been super. I guess I'm really proud that I did it. It was much more challenging than I had initially thought it was. Like, to make content is pretty tough. There's a lot that goes into it, and it really pulls at like a whole bunch of different skills. So I'm super impressed by YouTubers in general. So I guess we're making it up as we go along. And what I realized in this video was like the thing that I have to talk about, my unique advantage, is exactly what I harped on about in this video, is that connection between the left brain, the right brain, the creative and the strategy. So I actually think what's going to happen going forward is this content is going to be more about bridging creativity and strategy. What is it to create will become about the business of creativity. Anyway, so if you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.